History holds few moments as shocking as the sudden loss of a leader. In America's past, 4 presidents met a violent end, forever changing the course of the nation. Uncover the gripping stories behind these pivotal assassinations in this video. Abraham Lincoln. Imagine this, the 14th of April, 1865. The Civil War, a conflict that tore a nation apart, had just ended 5 days earlier. America was breathing a collective sigh of relief. President Abraham Lincoln, the man who guided the country through its darkest hours, was enjoying a night at Ford's Theater with his wife, Mary Todd Lincoln. They were watching Our American Cousin. But then the unthinkable happened. John Wilkes Booth, a well-known actor and Confederate sympathizer, slipped into Lincoln's private balcony. One shot, fired into the back of Lincoln's head. The nation's hope for healing was shattered in an instant. Lincoln was rushed across the street to Peterson House, where he clung to life until 7:22 the next morning. His death marked a tragic first, the first United States president assassinated in office. The grief was immense, almost unbearable, especially with the war so fresh in everyone's minds. Secretary of War Edwin Stanton immediately launched an investigation, and within 4 hours, Vice President Andrew Johnson was sworn in. Lincoln's body embarked on a mournful journey back to Springfield, Illinois, lying in state at the Capitol first. Along the way, millions lined the tracks, desperate for a glimpse of their fallen leader. Meanwhile, a massive manhunt for Booth and his co-conspirators was underway. Booth was eventually cornered in a barn in Virginia and killed. 9 others faced trial, some executed, others imprisoned. It was a swift, brutal response to an act that had scarred the nation. James Abram Garfield. Next, we have James Abram Garfield, a president whose time in office was tragically short, less than a year. Sworn in on the 4th of March, 1881, he became the second president to be assassinated, though his end was far from immediate. It was July, and Garfield was on his way to join his family in New Jersey when Charles Julius Guiteau, a disgruntled office seeker, fired 2 bullets into his back. The president was taken to the White House, where he endured not only agonizing pain, but also the oppressive summer heat. Doctors desperately tried to find the bullets, even using early, crude methods like probing his torso. In a fascinating twist, inventor Alexander Graham Bell even designed a device specifically to locate the bullets, but it ultimately failed. Tragically, these repeated medical interventions likely introduced the infection that slowly, agonizingly, claimed Garfield's life on the 19th of September. His vice president, Chester Alan Arthur, stepped up. Ironically, Arthur had been at odds with Garfield's efforts to reform the spoils system. Yet, upon becoming president, Arthur surprisingly championed civil service reform, carrying on Garfield's unfinished work. As for Guiteau, he was apprehended immediately, a mentally unstable man convinced he deserved a diplomatic post. He was convicted of murder and hanged less than a year after Garfield's death. William McKinley. Fast forward to the 6th of September, 1901, President William McKinley, 7 months into his second term, was speaking at the Pan American Exposition in Buffalo, New York. Thousands were in attendance, and the atmosphere was electric. But hidden in the crowd was anarchist Leon Czolgosz. As McKinley greeted the public in a receiving line, Czolgosz approached and fired 2 shots into his abdomen. Chaos erupted. McKinley was quickly pulled away for medical aid while the crowd turned on Czolgosz, beating him. Despite a seemingly successful surgery, 1 bullet couldn't be found. Days later, gangrene and infection set in. McKinley passed away in the early morning of the 14th of September. His reported last words, "I am not sorry for my crime. I am sorry I could not see my father." A chilling statement from the assassin, not the president. Interestingly, McKinley had pleaded with the crowd to spare Czolgosz, a plea that likely saved his life at that moment. Czolgosz was later tried, convicted, and executed on the 29th of October, 1901. With McKinley's death, Vice President Theodore Roosevelt, who had replaced the deceased Garrett Hobart, took the oath of office, stepping into a presidency he never expected. John Fitzgerald Kennedy. Our final and perhaps most impactful presidential assassination brings us to the 22nd of November, 1963. President John F. Kennedy, a young, vibrant leader, was visiting Dallas, Texas with his wife Jacqueline. The streets were lined with cheering crowds as their motorcade moved through downtown. Then, a sudden barrage of bullets. Two struck President Kennedy, one in the head, one in the back. The world watched in horror as news reports streamed in. Kennedy was rushed to the hospital, but his wounds were fatal. His death was announced later that afternoon. The accused assassin, Lee Harvey Oswald, had fired from the 6th floor of the Texas State Book Depository. He fled, but was apprehended shortly after, also fatally shooting Dallas police officer J.D. Tippit. The nation plunged into profound mourning. Kennedy's body was flown back to Washington, D.C. on Air Force One, where Vice President Lyndon Johnson was sworn in, with Jacqueline Kennedy by his side. News of Kennedy's death dominated television and radio for weeks, a stark contrast to previous assassinations. This was the first presidential assassination in the age of mass media, and the images and sounds were seared into the public consciousness. Just 2 days after the assassination, in another shocking turn, Oswald himself was shot and killed on live television by Jack Ruby while in police custody. Ruby later died in prison. The events surrounding Kennedy's death and the subsequent killing of his alleged assassin continue to fascinate and haunt the American public to this day. These 4 moments remind us of the fragility of power and the profound impact of unexpected tragedy on a nation. Each assassination left an indelible mark on American history, shaping the political landscape and the national psyche in ways that continue to resonate. Which of these stories do you find most impactful and why? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more deep dives into history.